Question: how does the world actually seem through your eyes? Does the earth actually feel flat to you? Does that sound right? Or when you look around, does it seem like it's actually round? It probably does appear that the sun rises in the west and sets in the east. From our vantage point, it does look like the stars and other planets revolve around us. Nowadays, though, we know that reality is dramatically different in a lot of ways than our intuition. Now, intuition is another way of saying hunch. So the way just intuitively things seem to us is not necessarily how they are. A great example is your own body. Every human body is comprised of trillions of cells. And at any given second, those cells, millions of them, are involved in complicated processes that you're completely just blissfully unaware of. So you wouldn't even know that. So the world is not always as it seems. And as we've gotten farther along with our knowledge, we understand that better and better. Probably doesn't seem like the world is spinning either, yet it is. So let's go back a little bit to the less enlightened days before the scientific revolution, before the Renaissance. Now, the key figure to look at here is Aristotle. He was ancient Greek philosopher and scientist. Now, this is back in the day when to be a philosopher and to be a scientist were interchangeable. They were the same thing. He covered a huge range of subjects, was a very prolific writer and deep thinker. He was the founder of formal logic. He was known famously as Plato's pupil. And it was he who gave us geocentrism. Aristotle gifted many things to Western civilization, and a lot that has been retained and studied over the centuries since his time, which was 4th century Greece. And geocentrism is, for our purposes here, the most important. He argued that the world was stationary. The Earth was the stationary center of the universe, and everything else circled around it. Now, there's some reasons why that caught on. That became accepted for the next 1,000 years. One of the reasons was people figured, well, if the Earth is moving, then how come all these other stars and constellations appear to be in a fixed place? If we're moving, shouldn't it look like they're moving as well? And another one was people looked at the planet Venus and they looked at its luminosity, which is another way of saying its brightness, and they thought, like, well, that's way too consistent. They were just looking at it through the naked eye, and it didn't make sense to them if the world wasn't the center of the universe, why those things should be. So Aristotle's geocentrism, the geocentric theory, that model of the universe, reigns for another 1,000 years. And in that time, not much happens in continental European science, but as this chapter goes over, there was a lot happening in the early Islamic world. From the 1700s to the 1200s, they made a number of advances into astronomy and medicine and other fields, yet this model remained until some of the scientists that we'll cover after this came along.